Okay. Let's talk about what's happening outside and what's happening inside. How to process things that are in, how to process things that are outside. Well, I think everybody knows when you're stretching, there's the physical part of you, and there's the psychological part of yourself. And they know there's this emotional part of yourself and a spiritual part of yourself. There's four parts, right? And the physical part of yourself is very much associated with the instincts of being very loving. And when your relationship with the outside object isn't working, then you're angry. And then the thinking part of yourself, the psychological part, is associated with being either fearless or fearful. So you're afraid when you don't know something, and then when you know it, then you're fearless. And then the emotional part of yourself is associated with you're really excited about something and satisfied, or you're anxious because you don't have satisfaction yet. And the spiritual part of yourself is associated with being very calm or peaceful and frightened when things on the outside are dangerous to you. So the question is, where is your attention when those different parts of you are operating? So in some situations, you're more emotional and social. In other situations, you're more physical and active. In other situations, you're much more analytical and problem solving. And in other situations, you're much more spiritual or practical. Well, where the attention goes in order to process these four instincts is quite different. Let's start with the first part, the physical part. So in the physical world, you're taking in your information from your five outside senses, and all of that's just pouring inside of you. And as it comes in, you find yourself relating to how that makes you feel. And if it's working okay for you, then you feel very loving. And if it's not working for you, then you feel angry about what's actually going on. Well, if it's angry, something's got to be telling you, and the anger tells you that it's not working. Something's got to tell you that. So instead of just thinking of anger as a bad thing, I would think of it as, oh, something's telling you the relationship between you and the outside world isn't working. And so the question is, when whatever's coming into you is, and you are getting angry about, for whatever reason, how do you process that anger? Well, acting it out doesn't work so well. And we're not talking about people being perfect, but if you keep staying inside when you're feeling angry, you'll process that feeling as that's coming into you. You're feeling angry. And then when you feel angry, if you keep processing that, having that anger, you're aware your attention is inside, you'll come up with an idea to cause a resolution in conflict. In the thinking part of yourself, when you don't know something, you become afraid. Well, something's got to tell you when you don't know. Otherwise, you would think you knew all the time. So when you don't know something, you feel afraid. Well, again, whatever it is that you don't know about is coming into you. And as it comes in, you feel free. So then what you need to do is keep feeling afraid. And when you do, that fear will direct your attention to what to pay attention to inside of yourself. And then all of a sudden you discover what you didn't know, because you're the center for creating knowledge, right? In the emotional world, in the emotional part of yourself, you want satisfaction. You have desires. And when something on the outside satisfies you, then you feel very excited. But when you're not satisfied, you start to feel anxious. So something's got to tell you when you're not satisfied. That's anxiety. So when you're anxious about something, here you are, you have a desire inside to go, and it drives your attention outside to try to discover something, and that would satisfy you. And when you do that, and you keep doing that, you process the anxiety until you engage with something that actually gives you satisfaction. And then the last one is the spiritual part of yourself, where when you're not feeling peaceful or serene, calm in a situation, then something on the outside is perceived as frightening. So here you are on the inside, you're feeling frightened. And how do you process that? Well, you're already turned on the inside, you feel frightened. So then your attention has to go outside to make a connection between the inside and outside. And as you put your attention outside on whatever is frightening you, you'll process that. And then you actually get to be calm and peaceful again because you'll know the practical answer about what to do. So most people think of these negative emotions as a bad thing. No, they're just, you have a positive instinct or you have a negative. And then the positives all mean that things are working for you, so everything's good. But something's got to tell you when it isn't. And so people call those negatives. They don't want to have the negatives. No. The negatives are telling you that you're either angry about something because the relationship isn't working, you're afraid because you don't know something, you're anxious because you're unsatisfied, or that you're frightened because the situation isn't calm and something needs to happen to change that situation. So the whole basis of how to deal with what's inside and what's outside is how to keep them connected all the time. So in the physical world, when you feel angry or loving, that's already happening inside. That's already happening. You're already inside. That the world's coming into you. And so what you got to do is the outside's already coming in. So what you got to do is stay inside so the connection happens. In the thinking world, when you don't know something, what happens is that here you are, it's coming into you, you're feeling afraid, you're inside feeling afraid, so then you got to let that keep coming into you and you stay inside with that. And when you do, that creates, again, a connection between outside and inside. And then what happens is that you learn what you don't know. In the emotional world, when you're already inside having all these feelings of desires or excitement or anxiety, your attention has to go outside to make that connection so you can engage with what would be satisfying for you. And in the spiritual world, again, here you are having all these rumblings about how something outside is frightening you. You have to look outside so you have a connection between the inside and outside. So it's really not about having positive and negative emotions. It's really about making sure the inside and outside stay connected. If you don't know which ones those are, you don't know whether you're frightened or anxious or whatever, then you can be in the situation or get out of it if that's better. But if you're in it, then let your attention go either out or in and see what starts to process for you. I really like this idea that the negative emotions or the negative instincts aren't negative in the sense of being bad. Something's got to tell you things aren't working. So, and the positive tell you things are already working. By the way, the negatives are much easier to handle than the positives, the opposite of what people would think. When you have those positive emotions of love and fearless and satisfied and calm, now your things are working pretty well. That means whatever you have going on, it's going to start to surface. So then that's when people really start to really need support from themselves and other people around them because things are really good now. And as a result, they can afford to feel what's coming up into them. Whereas before, that's not going to come up. So it's much harder to handle the positives than it is the negatives. I think that's a good thing to know about. There are 16 genetic personality types, 16 muscle groups, 16 organs, 16 genetic personality types. Half of them need to keep their attention outside, and half of them need to keep their attention inside. When you have balancing personality types, one always has their attention outside, one has the attention inside, and what they need to do is learn how to do the balance of those two things. So we need to get the balance. If you tend to have your attention inside, then the attention needs to learn how to be outside and how to process that, and vice versa. When you do take whatever you're normally doing, say you're a type, a physical type or a thinking type, where you normally have your attention inside and what's going on inside, and you become more integrated and balanced, your attention will start to go outside. And when it goes outside, actually, you're going to realize, oh, you already have all this stuff going on inside, and so you have to go outside to get the second half of view of reality. So there's two views of reality. one from the inside, one from the outside. And half the people do one and half to do the other. So after a while, when you're secure enough with either being in or out, you'll start to consider the other, and then you get the full view of reality. Otherwise, you only have a half of the pixels of what reality is really like. So I just wanted to let you know that there's an inside of a person and there's an outside of a person. And when you have different instincts going on, your attention needs to be either in or out in order to process those instincts. It's really that simple. There is a very special situation, and that is that when you become really balanced as your own type, whatever your type is, and whatever type balances you, that all of a sudden, instead of you, say, being in with your attention, you're now out. The inside's working automatically. Or if you're a type where your attention's outside, all of a sudden your attention's going to be inside, and that's what's going to be happening to you. So you turn either inside out or outside in, is what happens. And the other unusual thing that happens is that what you're normally conscious of as one type, whatever type that is, when you're balanced, you become aware of what the unconscious or your balancing type is aware of. So when you become balanced, a very unusual situation occurs where you go inside out and upside down. Why don't you find out? Have a great time.